next we talk about the cardiac cycle. The cardiac cycle refers to the filling of the heart and then the contraction of the heart. So during diastole, you can write the definition for diastole as relaxation and filling. Relaxation and filling. And then for systole, this is when the heart contracts. Systole is when the heart contracts. All right, so which valves are open during diastole or filling of the heart?
The tricuspid and bicuspid?
Yeah, so the tricuspid and mitral valves are open during relaxation or filling of the heart. And then when the heart contracts during systole, which valves are open?
Aortic and pulmonic.
Okay, aortic and pulmonic. All right, the nervous system, the autonomic nervous system innervates the heart. There's a branch that stimulates the heart rate and increases contractility. Which branch is that? Yes, the sympathetic nervous system of the autonomic nervous system. Sympathetic. And which branch inhibits heart rate and decreases contractility? Yes, parasympathetic. So when you're getting here to take your exam and your heart is pounding, that's your sympathetic nervous system causing your heart rate to increase, contractility increases. But then after you've had lunch and you're nice and relaxed, you don't need your heart rate to be so fast, and then it slows down. And that's the parasympathetic system takes over and slows down your heart rate. All right, so the muscle fibers that are in the ventricles, the cardiac muscle fibers, they have sodium, potassium, calcium in different concentrations outside the muscle fiber cells and inside the muscle fiber cells. And that's going to be, this leads us into looking at EKGs. So it says the cardiac muscle fibers keep high concentrations of positive ions just outside their membranes and high concentrations of negative ions just inside the membrane. And this creates an electrical charge across the muscle cell. And that electrical charge is called the membrane potential, but most commonly it's called action potential. Action potential means that there's a potential for action to occur. And the action of a muscle is to contract. So because you've got a different charge, a different electrical charge outside the cell compared to inside the cell, there's a possibility for action to occur when those charges change. So it says at rest. You could stick a little voltmeter on the cardiac muscle cell and measure what the charge is outside the cell. It would say 0. And you put it inside the cell, and it says it's minus 90 millivolts inside the cell. So there's a difference in charge from the outside of the cell to the inside of the cell. What ions are involved in maintaining this difference in electrical charge? And it gives you 3 blanks.
Potassium, calcium, and salt.
Sodium, potassium, and calcium. There's a lot more potassium inside the cell, but there's a lot more sodium and calcium outside the cell. All right, so that's the background information you need to understand what depolarization means. So it tells you here, when a cardiac cell receives an electrical stimulus, the inside of the cell changes in polarity from the minus 90 millivolts to plus 30 millivolts. So it goes from having a negative charge to having a positive charge. And what causes it to change is just the movement of sodium. Sodium was outside the cell and it goes in the cell, and now you've got a positive charge inside the muscle cell. So once the cell has gotten a negative charge, no, I didn't say that right. Once the cell has a positive charge on the inside, it can contract. So once the cell has a positive charge on the inside, now it can contract. And then after it contracts, then the ions go back to where they normally are. So the sodium has to go back out of the cell. And now the charge will change back to negative on the inside of the cell. So when it goes back to a negative charge, that is called repolarization. All right, so we said that action potential just means there's a potential for a cell to contract. It tells you that an electrical impulse spreads to the cardiac cells and blank will occur. So what is the word that you would put there? Yes, depolarization. So the inside of the cell becomes positive. It goes from minus 90 millivolts to plus 30. That's called depolarization. And then when it goes back to its resting charge of minus 90 millivolts, what is that called? Repolarization. So you write that one in also. All right, so the conduction pathway is made up of, you can write down what it's made up of. These are nerve cells that travel through the heart and stimulate muscle cells to contract. Nerve cells that travel through the heart and stimulate muscle cells to contract. That's the conduction pathway. It's a bunch of nerve cells. And it stimulates the heart muscles. The conduction will begin with the SA node. Do you have to write that down, or is that? Oh, it's on the next page. All right, it gives you a blank to fill in, and you're going to put in SA node. And S and A stand for Sinoatrial, Sinoatrial, Sinoatrial node. It's located in the right atrium near the superior vena cava. An impulse is initiated here. So this is where a normal impulse begins. Then the impulse will spread over the atrial muscle to the AV node. All right, let's look for that in the picture. So there's a bundle of nerve tissue up here by the superior vena cava in the right atrium, and that's the SA node. And then there's branches that will feed the rest of the atrium. It'll cross over and go into the left atrium, the right atrium, and it all ends up down here at the next bundle of nerve tissue called the AV node, atrioventricular node. All right, so blank is located in the septal wall of the right atrium, just behind the tricuspid valve. What are you going to put there?
AV.
Yes, AV node. Conduction to the ventricles is delayed here to give the ventricles adequate filling time. So what it's telling you is when the impulse reaches the AV node will hang on and not spread the conduction right away. Because what needs to happen is that the ventricles need to fill with blood first before the conduction tissue tells the muscles to contract. So there needs to be a little bit of a pause in conduction, and that's what the AV node does. It'll hold the conduction for a very small portion of a second, and then it'll feed it to the rest of the conduction. So blank penetrates the fibrous separation between the atrium and the ventricle. Yes, the bundle of His. His is spelled H-I-S. The bundle of His. And then the nerve fibers entering this interventricular septum will divide into...
The right and left bundle branches.
Yes, very good. It's a good review for you. The right and left bundle branches. And then the smaller branches of each bundle spread throughout the ventricles.
Purkinje fibers.
Purkinje fibers. All right, so after the AV node, the bundle of His goes through the thick membrane to get to the right and left bundle branches. And from there, goes to the little Purkinje fibers that spread throughout the ventricle muscles. All cardiac tissue has automaticity. And what that means is the ability to depolarize spontaneously. So if you could take out all the conduction tissue and just keep the heart fed with oxygen and a blood supply, the heart could continue to contract on its own. So it has the ability to depolarize spontaneously. So the SA node, if it was disconnected from the nervous system, it would still, let's see, how do I describe this? So the nerve that feeds the SA node, if you cut that nerve off, but the SA node is still intact, then it'll continue to initiate impulses 60 to 100 times per minute. So SA node disconnected from the nervous